So, Avdeevka is ours. Russian flags were hoisted on the administrative buildings of the chemical plant, which means that Ukraine did not get a second Azovstal. The militants abandoned the fortifications that they had been building for 10 years. These are entire underground cities with their own lines of trenches, with dugouts, with caponiers, with minefields. Ukrainian generals considered the city impregnable, but they were very mistaken. The total advance during and after the capture of Avdeevka was 8 kilometers 600 meters. Almost 32 square kilometers have been liberated. The new commander-in-chief of Ukraine, Syrsky, first tried to stabilize the situation. And he sent selected Nazis from the Azov regiment to Avdeevka, but they failed. This is what the disorderly and panicky flight of Ukrainian militants looked like. They fled at night. But even in the dark, the enemies were finished off by Russian artillery. The Ukrainian command announced a retreat when the city's defenses had already been breached, and the Ukrainian group was cut into two parts. As the Russian Ministry of Defense said, the mass exodus of Bandera's supporters began a day before the official announcement of the retreat. Moreover, Ukrainian soldiers left Avdeevka on foot. They had to abandon a huge amount of equipment. In the last 24 hours of chaotic flight alone, 1,500 enemy fighters were killed. Putin was informed about the complete liberation of Avdeevka by forces from the center troops on February 17 at 4 a.m. The Avdeevka operation was commanded by Colonel General Andrei Mordvichev. Putin sent him a congratulatory telegram. Right now, the Ministry of Defense is preparing personal lists of fighters and pilots who took part in the operation to liberate Avdeevka. The heroes will be awarded, the Kremlin said, and the long-suffering satellite of Donetsk itself looks like this right now. The first footage from the liberated Avdeevka is in our material. Look. On February 17, 2024, the veterans unit planted a flag in the 9th quarter of the city of Avdeevka. Soldiers of the veterans unit raised the Russian flag over the Avdeevskaya high-rise building. This is the highest point in the city where the Russian flag is raised. It should not be lowered. The Russian Ministry of Defense liberated an area of almost 32 square kilometers. The first to enter Industrial Avenue are the soldiers of the 30th Brigade. Now we are going to hang our flag. Come on, fix the flag. Okay. Putin received the first reports that the operation in Avdeevka was almost completed at 4 a.m. on February 17. At 11 a.m. the president had another meeting with Defense Minister Shoigu and Chief of the General Staff Gerasimov. In the afternoon the city was completely liberated. Soldiers of the 1st Slavic Brigade carried out the assault in close conjunction with units of the Center Group under the command of Colonel General Andrei Mordvichev. The city is ours. They abandoned their wounded and healthy soldiers here. Basically, their officers were the first to retreat. These were units of the Azov regiment. We are now finishing cleaning up these small groups. 100% the city is ours. The Ministry of Defense publishes footage of the disorderly flight of Ukrainian soldiers. This is what it looks like from the air. And here you see a Ukrainian infantry fighting vehicle that failed to escape from a drone during the retreat from Avdeevka. We retreat from our positions. The Russians drove us out of the city. Not many of us returned. And not all of us returned. Shortly before the fall of the city, the Kiev regime transferred militants from the Azov regiment to Avdeevka. This information was officially confirmed by the 3rd Assault Brigade of Ukraine, and they immediately admitted that the situation in the city was stalemate. Within a day, Bandera's troops reported that they, too, were retreating to prepared positions. The retreat itself was like a stampede. These footage shows that Bandera's supporters drove into Avdeevka and then ran away, raising their hands in the same way. The Ukrainian commander-in-chief Syrskyi officially announced the withdrawal of troops from the city on February 17. Enemy losses in the battles for Avdeevka over the past 24 hours amounted to more than 1,500 military personnel under the continuous fire of Russian troops. Only a separate scattered formation of enemy militants managed to hastily leave Avdeevka, abandoning their weapons and military equipment. The order of the commander-in-chief of Ukraine Syrskyi to abandon the city was issued only a day after the uncontrolled flight of enemy troops from Avdeevka began. This footage shows damaged Ukrainian armored vehicles leaving the city. Not all vehicles were evacuated. This video shows the destruction of a German Leopard tank and an American Bradley infantry fighting vehicle that got stuck during the retreat. The Russian Ministry of Defense shows that the fields and roads in the suburbs of Avdeevka are literally strewn with abandoned equipment. Under the onslaught of the Russian army, the underground fortresses of Ukraine, which Ukrainian militants had been creating for 10 years, also fell. Inside there are weapons and ammunition warehouses, command posts, and personnel locations. Now it is not Bandera's followers who are based in concrete dungeons, but soldiers of the 1st Slavic Brigade. There are Western canned goods in the kitchen of an underground bunker in Ukraine. The arsenal includes American javelins and ammunition supplied by NATO countries. The fact that it was the Kiev Nazis who were based here is only reminded by the Bandera slogans with which they decorated the dungeons. You see, these are Nazi slogans. And this is archival footage from another underground shelter in Ukraine. These are soldiers of the Azov regiment moving through the cable collectors of the Avdeevka coke plant, once the largest plant in Europe. Today, the Russian group of troops center, developing an offensive, has completely taken control of the territory of this enterprise. We knocked out enemy fighters from the plant using fab bombs. Among the grayness of destroyed high-rise buildings on the western outskirts of Avdeevka, there is a surviving church. The Orthodox Church of St. Mary Magdalene, equal to the Apostles, was practically not damaged during the fighting. The watchman of this church, Alexei, meets the liberators, and he calls for driving the Ukrainians, whom he calls Germans, to Berlin. Drive them all the way to Berlin, and you will stay here forever. And we are at home. The Russian Ministry of Defense is preparing personal lists of fighters and pilots who took part in the operation to liberate the city. This operation was led by Colonel General Andrei Mordvichev. Putin sent him a telegram. Today, the center group of troops, developing an offensive, completely captured the city of Avdeevka of the Donetsk People's Republic for excellent military operations. I express my gratitude to all the troops led by you who took part in the battles for Avdeevka. Eternal glory to the heroes who fell in battle while solving the problems of a special military operation. The New York Times writes that Russia is advancing on 5 fronts at once. According to the Americans, this is the most dangerous situation since the beginning of the war. We are talking about the Avdeevskoye direction, Mariinskoye, Rabotinskoye, Kremenskoye and Bakhmutskoye directions. Allegedly, the Russian army has accumulated up to 40,000 military personnel in the Mariupol region and approximately 110,000 military personnel in the Kupiansk and Lyman region. Another black marker bad sign for Ukraine appeared today near Kupiansk. Zelensky personally came there and visited the command post of the 14th Brigade of Ukraine. With a deep wrinkle on his gloomy face and a hopeless look, he presented awards to the fighters. He also gave a farewell speech, wishing them victory. Exactly a month ago, Zelensky visited Avdeevka in exactly the same way. We know what came of it. That night, the Ukrainian defense was broken through to the west of Avdeevka, near the village of Lastichkino, from where Ukrainian militants were also fleeing at breakneck speed. The Washington Post and Reuters call Avdeevka a strategic city, and defense post described this settlement as extremely important for Ukraine. BBC, describing the importance of Avdeevka for the first time. Perhaps this really happened for the first time. It honestly reported that it was from there, from Avdeevka, that Kiev ironed Donetsk for many years. Fox News called Avdeevka a significant victory for Putin. That marks a turning point in the Ukrainian war. Fox News cites Russia's advantage in the air as the main reason for the failure of Ukraine and NATO, at least along the front line. Russia was using aircraft more frequently in this particular battle than before. Moreover, Fox News estimated that in the last few days alone, Russia has dropped more than 600 FAB bombs on Ukrainian positions near Avdeevka, which supposedly tipped the scales in Russia's favor. Now Washington is trying to save Ukraine from despondency with the help of new fairy tales about new wonderwolves. This time, NBC News dug up super exclusive information that allegedly very soon Biden will transfer ATACMS missiles to Kyiv with increased accuracy, with an increased range of up to 300 kilometers. And this will allow Ukraine to strike deep into the Crimean Peninsula. Previously, they had already transferred to Ukraine a small batch of ATACMS cluster missiles with a range of up to 165 kilometers. Did it help them? No, it didn't help them. At the same time, CNN reported that after the fall of Avdeevka, Biden is not sure that other Ukrainian cities will not fall in the same way.